Hey everyone, Nam here to fill out my 2013 March Madness bracket. I don't want to waste any time, so let's get started and get into this. First things first, I'll be advancing all number 1 seeds to the second round. No 16 seed has ever beaten a 1 seed. That's not to say, though, I wouldn't root for a 16 seed to beat a 1 seed because it'd be cool to see. I'd like to see that happen sometime. But we'll be the conservative picks and just move them on to the second round. Uh, we'll start with the South region. North Carolina, my favorite team. They had an all-right team this year, not one of their better ones, but I look for them not to have any problems with Villanova, and I see them moving on to the second round. VCU, another team that's been make their basketball program make some noise as of late. They went to the Final Four in 2011. I see them beating Akron in the first round here. Michigan and South Dakota. Michigan, they were ranked number 1 this year, the first time since the Fab Five with Chris Webber. Excuse me. I look for Michigan to win their first round matchup against South Dakota. UCLA versus Minnesota. I look for UCLA to win that one, and I will see them facing Florida Gators in the second round. And we'll be getting the rematch of the 2006 national championship game there. San Diego State versus Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Oklahoma there. Georgetown versus Florida Gulf Coast. Picking Georgetown. Then up here, Roy Williams will be facing Kansas again. And just like in 2008, I see Kansas beating North Carolina and moving on to the Sweet 16. VCU versus Michigan. I look for Michigan to, even though they probably might have been not the actual number one team this year, even when they were ranked it. I don't think they're the best team, but I see them beating VCU to move on to the Sweet 16. UCLA versus Florida. I see UCLA getting its revenge, moving on to the Sweet 16 by beating Florida, where they will meet Georgetown. Now we got the Sweet 16 set there in the South. Kansas versus Michigan. Look for Kansas to win that one. UCLA versus Georgetown. Georgetown will move on there. I look for Georgetown to defeat Kansas and come out of the South region and go on to the Final Four. Now on to the East region. Indiana already moved on to the second round as the number 1 seed. NC State, they were a national championship contender, believe it or not. By many sports writers and everything prior to the season beginning. They were even ranked number 6, I believe, when the season started. But they didn't live up to expectations. But with that said, I don't see them having any problems with Temple, and they will move on in the second round. The 12-5 matchup, that's always interesting, as that's where a lot of the upsets occur in the first round between those two seeds. I'm going to go with California, actually, in this one, and have them move on to the second round. And I believe Syracuse, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they lose to Montana in 2005 in the first round? And also correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they the same exact seeds like this, number 4 and 13? Either way, though, I see Syracuse moving on this time. And they will face California in the second round. Butler, Bucknell. Butler, they started out strong this season. They destroyed North Carolina, beat Indiana in Bloomington, but then they had hit a bump along the way. They got crushed by VCU. Bucknell, tournament champions. I look for Bucknell to win that one. That's an upset. Right there's my first one, really, besides, I guess, Oklahoma and San Diego State. But this is my first notable one here. Marquette, I have them beating Davidson. Illinois and Colorado, I see Colorado winning. I just not feeling it from Illinois at all. Miami, Florida versus Pacific. Miami's got a real favorable matchup, not only in the first round, but in the first couple rounds. So I have them moving on there. Indiana versus NC State. NC State and run will come to an end real quick. And ultimately they will be failing to live up to the expectations they had originally had, and Indiana will move on to Sweet 16 with no problem. California, I look for them to actually beat Syracuse and move on. I just don't think this is one of the stronger Syracuse teams that I've seen in recent years. Bucknell versus Marquette. I'm gonna go with Bucknell. believe it or not. I know it's going out on a limb there, but hey, it's March Madness. This is what it's all about. I have yeah, Miami right there. It's going to beat Colorado. Bucknell's run will come to an end, though. It's same with California. We got another 1-2 matchup. I know nothing, you know, too risky there, but hey, I had some good upset. I picked some upsets here in this bracket. Indiana versus Miami, though. I have Indiana moving on and coming out of the East and going to the Final Four there. Gonzaga already winning their first round. I see Wichita State beating Pittsburgh. Wisconsin, Mississippi, 12-5 matchup. I'm going to go with Mississippi. Wisconsin just never seems to do well in the tournament, really. The only time I can really remember them doing well was when 2000 when they went to the Final Four. Uh, but it just seems even when they're ranked high, it just doesn't seem like they get past the Sweet 16 or maybe. But before I put open mouth insert foot because I might be wrong and I'm just doing this bracket real quick, but I just don't. It just doesn't seem to stick out in my mind that Wisconsin kind of. It just seems that they don't do well in the tournament. That said, though, Kansas State they'll play-in winner. I see Kansas State winning though, regardless who wins that. Arizona versus Belmont. I'm going to go with Arizona. New Mexico versus Harvard. I'm going to go with New Mexico. Notre Dame and Iowa State. Shout out to my friend who hates Notre Dame, and we're going to go with Iowa State there. So long, Notre Dame. Ohio State versus Iona, and Ohio State's going to win that. And they will beat Iowa State in the second round. They'll go Sweet 16. New Mexico, Arizona. I'm going to go with not New Mexico, but Arizona, and they'll go to the Sweet 16. Kansas State versus Mississippi. We'll go with Kansas State. Gonzaga will have an easy time with Wichita State and move on to the second round. But I just don't think, even though Gonzaga was ranked number one, they didn't even get the number one overall seed. I see Kansas State beating Gonzaga here, and I'm going to go with uh, Arizona, Ohio State. I'm going to go with Ohio State winning that one. And I'm going to have Ohio State coming out of this region here, and they've got a pretty favorable, uh, matchups. It looks like as well. Now we go to the Midwest region. Louisville already advanced them as they were the number one seed. I look for Missouri to beat Colorado State. This 12-5 matchup doesn't seem anything special. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State there. St. Louis versus New Mexico State, though. I'm actually going to pick New Mexico State there and pick the upset. Memphis will be playing the play-in winner of, I think it's Middle Tennessee State and St. Mary's. But we're gonna go with Memphis. I hate not knowing who they're not playing though, so it's gonna it might count against me. So who knows? But we'll just go with Memphis. Michigan State versus Valparaiso. Tom Izzo always seems to you know get his team together and they stepping up the notch. They're always a dangerous team in the tournament. I look for them to have no problems here. They'll move on to the second round. Creighton versus Cincinnati. We're going to go with Creighton. Coach K leading his Duke Blue Devils over Auburn also in the first round, and they'll move on. And I think he'll have them moving on to the Sweet 16 with no problem as well. And then Tom Izzo will get another good matchup here in the regional semifinal, Michigan State and Duke. Louisville will beat Missouri, and New Mexico State, I think, will beat Oklahoma State. So that one, I think, will be an interesting matchup if that does happen, and I'm going to go with it. But I think New Mexico State's run will end there. Louisville will be in the regional final, and like I said, interesting matchup with Tom Izzo and Coach K. Big Ten, they said, is arguably the best conference in college basketball this year. And I will have to agree, but I'm going to go with Duke beat Michigan State. It's tough for me to do that because I really like Michigan State. I really think they could go far, actually, but I'm just going to go, Duke, I think, will make amends and, stepping up a notch after their disappointing loss to Maryland in the ACC tournament. And that will put us with Louisville versus Duke. Coach K versus Rick Pitino. That'll be another good matchup. But I'm gonna go with Duke. Maybe not the most popular choice, and maybe not one of the most stronger Duke teams, but hey, Duke won 2010, and I didn't think that was one of the stronger Duke teams that Coach K had. There's certainly other teams that he had that didn't win the national championship that were better than that team. That said, though, we got the Final Four set: Duke, Ohio State, Georgetown, Indiana, two Big Ten teams. I look for Indiana to win their matchup against Georgetown. Duke will win their matchup. We'll have Duke in Indiana, and I'm gonna go with the Hoosiers. Yes, the Indiana Hoosiers. They will be our national championship this year. A tiebreaker final score. I always like picking 82-74. So that right there is my March Madness bracket with Indiana as the national champions. Uh, feel free to make a video response with your bracket. It's always March Madness. Like I said, it's my favorite time of year. All college basketball fans, I'm sure, would agree. The upsets, the madness. What more could you want? Before I go, though, I just want to let you know I will leave links in the description of this video to my Facebook page for my YouTube channel and my sports blog. But with that said, I'm Nam. Always use your noodle.